Hello and welcome to the Hidden Feature Hunt. Thank you for being here. My name is Andreas Lesselhummer. I'm a field system engineer with Veeam in Austria, and together I'm here with Fabian. Fabian, maybe you want to introduce yourself and give us an overview what to expect from the session.
Of course, thank you, Andreas. Nice to have you all here. My name is Fabian Kessler. You may know me from the R&D forum as Mildur. Maybe you have heard of me. Today we want to go to a hidden feature hunt together with you on our treasure island. We want to discover hidden features in our product, Veeam Backup Replication version 12.1, about the malware detection, about security and compliance. Then we go into a few features from backup from object storage, data protection and data recovery. In the end, we will talk about new repository features and some other small features which can help you in your daily work.
So let's jump to the first area on our treasure map. It's the malware detection. And you know, with version 12.1, we introduced a lot here in the area of malware detection. Think about inline scan, Yara scan, or the guest file index scan. When my customers for the first time enabled the feature, they realized that they have some false positives. And one part was an application that is deleting a large number of files by design. So how can I get rid of the false positive in this case?
Yes. If you have enabled our guest index file scanning, then what we will do, we will compare your guest index, your file system from the last restore point 24 hours ago with the new restore points we have just created. If we see that there are a lot of files deleted from a specific file type, then we will mark the restore point as suspicious. And our current threshold values we have in the product is, if we have an example here on the slide for Word document files, docx. If we detect that more than 50% of all docx files have changed between your two backup sessions, then we will mark that restore point as suspicious. Or if more than 100 files have changed, and you can adjust those values to a value which suits better to your to the use case on your machine. And another option you can use is to just exclude this file server from this guest index file scanning. If there are too many false positive and you know it's maybe a test server and you don't need to scan that.
Another challenge we noticed is that there are fancy applications out there using fancy extensions, file name extensions, and our software thinks, okay, this is maybe a threat for the infrastructure, and again, a false positive is reported.
Yeah, let me first tell you how we know about those file extensions, about those known file extensions. We have on our Veeam servers, we have a suspicious files XML file. This file will be downloaded by your backup server every 24 hours if there is a new file. This file is maintained by us, so if we were made aware or we see that malware is using new file extensions to encrypt your files, then we will update that file. And if in your backup, if we see with the guest file index scan that one of those file extensions exists in your file system, then we will also mark this restore point as suspicious. What you can do if such event has raised, you can go to the history malware detection malware event node in the backup console, and you can see exactly which file extensions were found in your backup. There is also a link to the log file and an option. You can see it on the left picture. Just to say that slides will be shared with you after the session, so if you cannot see it right now, then you can download the slide after the sessions, after the event. There's a button you can click to exclude these extensions from monitoring. For example, you have a special program which creates TMP files, and you know that those TMP files, they are legit files. You don't want to scan for these TMP files, so you can exclude them.
Before we go to the next feature, just one thing, please stay until the end of the session. We forgot about that. We have a hidden speaker at the end of the session with a hidden slide, so don't run away when we are ready. The next feature is not really a hidden one, but it's a very useful feature from a technical point of view, and this was the reason why we said, okay, we want to have it here on stage. It's the Veeam Threat Center. It can do a lot for you.
Yeah. I hope everyone from you knows what Veeam is. It's our monitoring and reporting solution. And Veeam provides like overview. We have a backup heat map. We have a jobs calendar in Veeam. And in version 12.1, we have introduced the Threat Center in Veeam. Threat Center is an overview, a dashboard, as you can see on the left side, where you can see the state, the general health of your backup infrastructure. And version 12.1 allows you also to display that dashboard, that Threat Center, directly in your Veeam Backup console. You don't have to configure much. As soon as you add your backup server to the Veeam server, the console should be made available in your backup console, the view, but it's possible that it's not shown immediately. And in that case, please go to Veeam, check the connection settings of your backup server, and make sure that that checkbox, which is called provide access to the embedded dashboards for added backup server, is enabled. So the Veeam integration works.
The reason why my customers love the Threat Center extremely is because they are able to prove their daily work to the managers. And they also can use it really well if they have an audit, because the upper right graph shows a time back of 90 days. So they are able to prove that they have a really well-maintained infrastructure, not only for the day of the audit, they have it even for the last 3 months. And even my partners love the Threat Center because at the beginning of a session with the customer, they make a screenshot of the graph, and after a day full of work, they can prove that the graph will increase, that the number will be better, and that they did a very well job. Our next feature is for everybody in the room who is using third-party security software. And I'm pretty sure everybody of you has a third-party security software in place, hopefully. And it would be great if you can give this third-party security software a possibility to have access to one of your dedicated restore points. How can they do so?
Yeah. We have such an option already in our product since version 10. It was called the Data Integration API. But now what we have done in version 12.1, we made that functionality available in the backup console directly. So just go to a restore point, right-click on the restore point, and you have this new option, Publish Disks. What we will do when you do that, the restore points, the disks in the restore points gets mounted to a target machine, which can be a Windows or Linux machine, where you have installed your third-party analyzer application. So you can just mount the restore point to that machine and start your application and do with the data from the mounted backup what you need to do with your application.
So let's explore the next area on our treasury map. It's the security and compliance area. And here we find a feature that you might already know from version 12, but it has extremely increased in features.
Yes, our security compliance analyzer, we introduced that tool for you in version 12.0. In version 12.1, we have added almost approximately 20 new checks to it. You can find all the checks in our user guide we are doing these days. We also provide a PowerShell script in our knowledge database, which you can run. The PowerShell script will analyze which best practices you don't have set up yet, and it will also allow you to apply those best practices. Another option we have added to the security and compliance analyzer is the option to now run it according to a schedule, Before you had to run it manually if you have changed something in your infrastructure. Now you can set up the security compliance analyzer to run on a schedule. Also, it will send out an email notification if there was a change, if a best practice is not met anymore, so that you get aware that you need to do something on your backup server to check it out at least.
We all have to deal with time constraints. We are in a stressy business, and so it can happen that you accidentally delete maybe something that is not desired to be deleted. Maybe a backup file, maybe a complete backup repository. And the next feature can help you here to don't make a mistake.
That's right. Now in version 12.1, we have this for eyes authorization. The option can be enabled in the users and role wizard. It's important to say that the for eyes authorization wizard does not protect your backup data. It can still be deleted from the repository. But what we are doing with this for eyes authorization, we are protecting your configuration. So no one, if you delete a backup from the backup console or remove it from configuration, if you delete a backup job or a backup repository, if you delete something from the configuration, a second administrator has to confirm that deletion. That can help you against malicious attack. It can also help you if an administrator made a misclick and has done a mistake. So it's like an additional protection, which helps you. Yeah.
Very important, because I already got the question twice. Even if you use the 4-eyes authorization, it is not possible to delete immutable backups, just to be sure that everybody is aware of this. The next feature is really a hidden feature, because you will not be aware of it as long as you do not run into it. If you run into it, you will get the error message that you can see here. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us something about this feature, about the time change protection feature?
Yeah, we have introduced this time change protection because of requests from our customers. Because if an attacker would have access to the server or to the backup server and he could just change the time, then it's possible that our service thinks now it's time, the files are not immutable anymore, and you could just delete restore points from the hardened repository. So we have introduced this time shift protection. What we will do when we detect one of those things we have listed here on the slide, we will make sure that the service who is responsible for deleting those files will stop doing that. So your files are protected against that. If you face this error message, because you may have powered off the server for a long time, then there will be a small file generated on the hardened repo server, and you can just delete that file, and the sessions and the services will continue to work as before. There's also an advanced configuration in our KB article if you need to adjust the delta or if you want to disable this check from some reasons.
It also makes sense to put this KB article into your disaster recovery documentation, because if you have to connect a hardened Linux repository with a new VBR server, then you might need this article to get away with the errors. The next topic is about the configuration database backup. If you work with Veeam, then you know that you have many possibilities to come back after a disaster where you lose your Veeam Backup and Replication server. The most comfortable way to do so is if you have this small little configuration database backup somewhere for use. And so it would be great if you can store the immutable, this configuration database backup on an immutable data store.
In version 12.1, we have added now the capability for you to write configuration backups immutable to object storage. But it's only object storage. We don't support yet hardened immutable configuration backups on hardened repos. Hardened repositories. It's just for object storage.
The next area on our treasure map is backup from object storage. That means object storage is the source for all of your backups. And as you know, we need a proxy server to bring the backup data down to our repositories. So there's the question, is it necessary to use only Windows?
No, for backup from object storage, we have introduced a new support for Linux. So you can now deploy general purpose backup proxy server to Linux machine, but only for object storage backup. It's not yet available for NAS file backup jobs. It's only for object storage for now.
When we protect object storage, then we are talking about a large number of files, maybe thousands, hundreds of thousands of files. And it's really hard to identify what is the scope that I want to restore, what has changed, what is the part that I want to restore now. Is there a possibility to compare my backup data with the production to see what has changed?
Mm-hmm. In version 12.0, what we have introduced is the capability for guest OS file level restore to do, when you open the restore, you can now, you could compare your backup state with the production state. And this capability we have now migrated also to NAS and object storage backups. So if you start restoring from an object storage backup or a NAS backup job, you can just click in the menu in your Restore Explorer that you want to compare it with production, and you will see exactly which files have changed, or which files are not anymore in your production environment. And then you can restore only those files. You don't have to restore everything and compare it yourself with some script. You can all do now with the Restore Explorer.
So let's jump to the next area, the data protection area. Maybe you used the backup copy from backup copy feature until version 11. Unfortunately, with 11.12, it disappeared.
Let me ask a question first to the audience. Who from you has used backup copy from a copy job? A few people. Good news, we have brought back these capabilities. It was removed in version 12.0 because we needed a little bit more time to develop it with the new backup copy format, but now it's back the capability. If you are on version 12.1.2, then the capability is already enabled on your backup server. If you're still running version 12.1.1, then you need to apply this registry key at the bottom of our slide to get this functionality. And it's really easy to use it. In version 11, there were workarounds to use backup copy from copy, where you had to choose from copy from repository, and then you had to change the source. But now it's much easier. You just go to the backup copy job, you select, I want to add a job from which one I want to copy. You choose your backup copy job, and we will copy the backups from this backup copy job to a third location.
When you run a backup job, you have the possibility to use different transport modes. You have the direct storage access, you have the hotnet transport mode, but you always have the MBD or network mode. And MBD is not always the fastest options, but now it has increased in performance. Yes,
our R&D department found in their research found out that we can optimize the entire network mode by just editing a few VDDK parameters, as you can see on our slide. The good news is, if you're already on version 12.1.2, then those optimizations are already in the product hard-coded. You don't have to do anything if you are on our latest patch. But if you are still running version 12 or version 12.1 before the latest patch, then we have that configuration on our slide, which you can implement on your Windows or on your Linux proxy server, and it should give you almost 2 times the speed with network mode than before.
When you use health checks, then you might have noticed that running backup jobs will always interrupt the running health check job. And this is, of course, necessary. Backup should always have a higher priority than a health check, but from time to time it's necessary that the health check will successfully finish, and there is a possibility.
Yeah, for that we have a registry key now. For some customer, it's important that they can let the health check at least, if they, for example, if they have a weekly health check, they want to have that health check done before a backup job can run again. So we have introduced this registry key where you can override the priority from a backup job and make the health check have a higher priority. Just important to know, if you have this registry key and the health check is still running, the backup job will not start until the health check has finished.
Sometimes it's necessary to have a custom retention for a given restore point. Imagine you have a backup job with 100 virtual machines, and all of them have a 30-day retention. And now your manager is coming and say, hey, I need for only one VM out of the 100 a dedicated, really long retention because we have to keep this last backup for a longer time. How can I achieve this?
Yeah, in version 12.1, what we have added the functionality to specify a customized retention period. So you just have to go to this JSON file in the Veeam Backup installation directory. You can add any retention you want. In our example here, we have added 1,278 days, which is 3.5 years. Then you have to close your backup console, open it again, and as you can see, now I have a 3.5 year retention available to me when I'm doing a copy backup, if I'm doing an export of a backup, or if I'm creating a Veeam zip file. I can use my customized retention, the one I need.
If you're dealing with a disaster, it is really necessary to keep in mind that there is a high chance that the background retention is applied to your restore points. And in the worst case, a very important retention point will be killed because of this background retention. It is possible to disable the background retention job.
Yeah, in version 12.1, we have now a PowerShell commandlet. Or also, we have built it in the UI, as you can see on our slide, that you can disable the background retention job. And it's important that you disable the backup retention job after an incident, because even if you just disable your job, that the job retention, that the job doesn't remove any restore points, the background retention job will still keep removing restore points, which you may need to use to recover from an older state. Yeah. So it's important to disable the background retention job if you face an incident, just to be sure that you have all the restore points available you need.
Let's talk about data recovery. This is one of my really favorite features in Veeam Backup and Replication, and hands up, who is using Sure Backup? Okay, still not enough hands up. The feature is really useful because it gives you the possibility to verify that all your backups can be restored successfully, and you can verify it. You can do it in an automated way. The problem was if you have a large infrastructure, the only possibility to do it in a really great way was to use a script. There were many scripts from the community, but now we have the possibility to do it with the Veeam console.
Yeah, before you had, maybe you have had to create multiple Sure Backup jobs to just run maybe on one weekend 100, on the next weekend another Sure Backup job runs with another 100 machines. What you now can do, you can now create a single backup job in version 12.1. You can link all your jobs with your 500, 1,000 VMs in it, and then you can enable that checkbox to process randomly, let's say 50 VMs per weekend or 100 VMs. Our engine will choose randomly some of your VMs and then test them. And on the next weekend, another 50. Maybe it's also possible that a VM which was also already tested a weekend before will be tested again, but the chances are should be slow for that. But it should help our bigger customers or bigger customers with bigger infrastructures to have less sure backup jobs, but still be able to run them on the weekend. There's also another option which came with version 12.1, something which was asked years in our forum for years. You can now exclude machines from testing. Let's imagine you have some test machines, your lab machines. You do not want to test them with the sure backup job every weekend. So go to exclusions and just tell the job, I do not want to test this machine.
The next topic is about continuous data protection. And this is a really great feature. It allows you to replicate your workloads with the RPO time down to 2 seconds. And I have a customer in Austria who replicates virtual machine from South Korea to his headquarters in Austria, over 5,000 miles distance. And he's really happy with it. But the only problem he has is he's not able to verify if these replicas are available in case of a disaster. And so he was looking for a feature that will help him here.
Yeah, version 12.1 now supports in a sure backup job or sure replica job CDP replicas. So you can add your CDP replicas as you would have normal general replicas, and you can run your sure replica job, and we will test that sure replica if the application works, if the machine can boot from the CDP replica.
Great news here. Sure replica is also available in the Veeam Recovery Orchestrator. So even there you have the possibility now to verify if the continuous data protected workload is available in case of a disaster. When we talk about CDP, we should also talk about the disaster itself. And here it would be great if I have a possibility to switch in case of a coming disaster without data loss to my second data center.
Yeah, you must be talking about planned failover, which is also now available for CDP replicas. So you can just run a planned failover as you would do for general VM replicas.
I already told you that CDP enables you to bring down your RPO time to up to 2 seconds. That means that you have hundreds of restore points available if you have configured them, and it would be great if there's a possibility to have a look into every single of these restore points to perform a single file level restore. Is this possible?
Yes, you can do that now. Just choose the restore point in the Restore Explorer, and you can restore files. Let's say if you do CDP replicas every 5 seconds, you can go back in 5-second steps and do a file level restore from that restore point.
So let's talk about object storage used as a repository. If you use an object storage as a capacity tier, you might want to know if all the blocks that VBR has written to the object storage are still there. You want to verify it. How can I do that?
Version 12.1 introduces a new introduces the health check to the capacity tier. What we will do with that feature is we will make sure, first we will verify the metadata, and then we will make sure that all objects are still there, which we need to restore from your restore points. We will not read the restore point, the objects. We will not download the objects with this health check. We will only make sure that the objects are there. Internally, we call that health check light. And it's a really, let's say, cheap version, not expensive version to do the health check, because we don't have to generate API calls to download something. We don't have the egress costs if you are on a public cloud provider who bills you all those API calls and download traffic.
When you use a capacity tier, it might be necessary to download a large amount of data from your hyperscaler, for example. This can lead to some strange, not issues, but improvements that might be necessary.
Yes, before version 12.1, when you have downloaded your downloaded backups from the capacity tier to the performance tier, then a full backup would have taken the entire space of a full backup. We had to download the backup file and store it. Now in version 12.1 and version as you can see, we have introduced fast clone support for downloading those backup files. So if you start the download from the backups node, as you can see on the screenshot here, then we will use fast clone on REFS. If you are on the latest patch, which we have released 2 weeks ago, then fast clone is also supported for REFS, XFS, and dedupe appliances if you download from the capacity tier to one of those performance tier extents.
The next feature is for all administrators who want to know which restore point is situated on which tier. Is it on my capacity tier? Is it on my RCHF tier? And this is possible using PowerShell.
Yes, exactly. Over the last few, let's say, years, we have always the request in the forum, Veeam, give me a PowerShell command to show me what restore points are on my capacity tier, what restore points are on my archive tier. We only had PowerShell commands to show restore points on the performance tier, but not on the other ones. There were some unsupported workarounds which we have shared in the forums, but now we have an official supported CMDLET, commandlet, which you can run and which will show you which restore point is located on which tier.
The next feature is of interest for all service providers in the room. Imagine you have a customer who is using object lock and he has a very long immutability period configured. And then this customer stops business with you or is going bankrupt. What can we do here?
Yeah. Version 12.1, it's a registry key, which is mainly meant for our service provider. Let me tell you a little bit about how object lock works before we are going into the registry key. When you write immutable objects, then there are two modes how we can write that object. We can either use governance mode or we can use compliance mode. When I write an object with governance mode, then I can use a user with the IAM permission S3 bypass governance retention to delete an immutable object. Even if the object is still immutable for the next few years, I can still delete it if I'm a super user admin or if I have that permission. And if I write an object with compliance mode, then I cannot delete it. Not even if I'm super admin, have super permissions, whatever, I cannot remove that object from a bucket. And for our service provider, that was an issue, that situation. Let's imagine a customer has written backup files with 10 years immutability on their object storage, and the customer cancels his contract and doesn't pay anymore after 3 months. But the service provider has still those backup files, those objects stored for the next 10 years. He cannot delete them. So now we have this registry key, which changes the default, which is compliance mode, to governance mode. And if you add that registry key, from that point in time, the backup server will start writing objects with governance mode, which will help a service provider when the customer has canceled the contract. The service provider can delete the backup files before the immutability period is over. It's important to know that the registry key requires a new backup server or at least new buckets. So you cannot enable it if you already have, you should not enable it if you already have buckets with immutable backups on it, or you will see error messages in your backup jobs. So it should be a new backup server.
The next area on our treasure map is about random knowledge. Let's talk about PostgreSQL. If you use PostgreSQL, you might see some fancy error messages or performance impact between your Veeam Backup Replication server and the PostgreSQL database. But there's one troubleshooting step that might help here.
Yeah, we got a lot of support cases where customers were complaining about the performance between the backup console and their configuration database server on PostgreSQL SQL. And in almost all cases, we have found out that the PostgreSQL server configuration was not optimized to be used by our product. Since we have support for PostgreSQL in version 12.0, we have this PowerShell command that set VBR PSQL database server limits. The PowerShell commands prepares the configuration of your configuration database server on PostgreSQL with optimized configuration parameter, which depend on how many memory, how many CPUs your database server has. If you change anything about the hardware, then you need to make sure that you run that configuration, that commandlet again, just to have the recommended configuration from us. It also adds, as an example, in version 12.1, we have added 4 new configuration parameters, which takes care of your log truncation on the PostgreSQL server. I don't mean the database logs, I mean the PostgreSQL application logs. So it's important, if you change the hardware configuration of your PostgreSQL server, add more RAM, add more CPU, run the command again. If you update to a newer version of Veeam, run that command again. And since version 12.1, the latest patch, we also have added a new check to the security and compliance analyzer, which will notify you if the command was not run, if there are missing configuration parameters on your PostgreSQL server.
The next topic will make life a little bit easier. If you're working with Veeam, then you know that we sometimes really have fancy build numbers. And even we guys from the system engineer team are sometimes struggling to identify which build number is which release.
Yes, before version 12.1, you may remember we had this release number format where we had the build number from the GA release, and then we have put there a P and the date of the patch. And if you have like an IT tool where you collect all the information from your infrastructure with the build number of the application, that wasn't really easy to use for you, for the customer. So we have decided to change our numbering of our builds, and now we are using, as you can see, we are using, I like to call it real build numbers because there is no date anymore. Now we have just 12.1.0 and then a smaller number. We have 12.1.1, we have 12.1.2, and our next, let's say, minor release, as you have heard with Proxmox support, will be probably 12.2 then. So real build numbers.
In the last days, we heard a lot about AI assistants. And of course, there's also an AI assistant available in Veeam Backup and Replication. What can this assistant do for you?
Yes, our Veeam AI, next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Our Veeam AI assistant in the backup console, you may have already seen it, has access to, we trained it with our internal, with our user guide, our public user guide. We trained it with our blog articles. And you can use it today to answer questions like, what's my first troubleshooting step if I have an error? You can ask it, how can I install a Linux agent? How do I need to configure my vSphere? How do I integrate my vSphere environment with Veeam? It doesn't have any information about your infrastructure, and it also doesn't have access to any information about the infrastructure. It's just asking questions which you can also find in the user guide.
So if I want to use the AI assistant, Fabian, is it necessary to connect my Veeam Backup and Replication server with the internet?
No, the backup server doesn't have to be connected to the internet. If you want to use the AI assistant, then your backup console, the machine where you run your backup console, needs to be connected to the internet.
So is there one last nice-to-have feature you want to talk about, Fabian?
Yeah, just something which we have since a long time in the product. If you have the Veeam agent in your infrastructure and you want to change that nice title from the Veeam agent, then you can use an XML file, specify the title you want to see, and use the Veeam agent configurator.exe to import that configuration, and the title is changed.
We already told you there will be a hidden speaker with a hidden slide at the end of our session, and so I ask you to give a warm welcome to Hannes Kasparik from Product Management.
Thank you. Who of you read the release notes of the latest patch 12.1.2? 1, 2, okay, that's good. Who of you read in this KB article about ZFS block cloning? That is good that we talk about it. Only 2 people read the release notes, which makes me think, okay, nobody reads release notes ever. But yeah, that's reality, what we have face in product management. So, block cloning on ZFS. Why is it cool? It's cool because now you have the chance to use space savings and also the performance that block cloning gives you also on ZFS. And we have some customers that really love ZFS because it gives them some other advantages. And if you use, for example, Btrfs, which is also a request here and there, and you read the release notes and you use that ZFS configuration option, also Btrfs works. We just didn't test it. In general, if you use that configuration option from the KB article, it allows you to use any file system that does block cloning. So if you're interested in that, feel free to use it. That was my feature.
Thank you.
Thank you.